mistake, somebody tells you, hey, you made a mistake. No, I don't remember. Me? Mistake? You must be mistaken.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Innal hamdalillah nahmadu wa nasta'inu wa nastaghfiru wa na'udzu billahi min sururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina may yahdihillahu fala mudhillalah wa may yudlil fala hadiyalah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Allahumma shalli ala sayidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yaumiddin. Amma ba'd. Ibu-ibu, bapak-bapak yang dirahmati oleh Allah, marilah pertama-tama kita panjatkan puji dan syukur atas kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Tidak lupa kita berikan salawat dan salam kita kepada junjungan kita Nabi besar Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alhamdulillah, hari ini kita masih diberikan nikmat Islam untuk bisa berkumpul di dalam acara menyambut Ramadan Reconnet with Al-Quran dengan Ustadz Nouman Ali Khan. Dan acara ini merupakan acara yang disponsori oleh Hijab dan BNI Syariah. Disupport oleh Masjid Istiqlal, diorganize oleh komunitas NAK Indonesia, Prisma Atin, Remaja Islam Sunda Kelapa, Yis Al-Azhar, Nasr Indonesia, dan Remaja Masjid Istiqlal. Media partner TV One, Radio Rasil, dan DMI Channel. Ibu-ibu, bapak-bapak, saudara-saudaraku, bulan Ramadan sebentar lagi akan kita masuki. Dan belum tentu di antara kita berkesempatan untuk mendapatkan Ramadan setiap tahunnya. Seperti kita ketahui, bulan Ramadan adalah bulan penuh berkah, bulan penuh rahmat. Kita berharap tahun ini kita bisa menemui Ramadan dan menjalankan ibadah dengan sesungguh-sungguhnya sehingga kita bisa benar-benar mendapatkan kemenangan. Dan pada kesempatan kali ini, sebelum kita mulai sesuatu yang baik dalam acara ini, saya mengajak ibu-ibu, bapak-bapak semuanya yang hadir untuk terlebih dahulu kita bacakan baca basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ustadz Nouman Ali Khan ini, beliau adalah warga negara Amerika Serikat, lahir di Berlin, tanggal 4 Mei tahun 1978. Ya. Dan beliau ini spesialis atau ahli di dalam menggali kosabahasa Arab. Jadi kalau kita nanti belajar dari beliau, mendengarkan lecture beliau, beliau akan kaji Quran dari kosakatanya. What's the true meaning of the word? Apakah arti sebenarnya dari ayah atau kata-kata yang ada di dalam Al-Quran? Terus nanti kita akan lihat lagi bagaimana sebenarnya apa yang bisa kita lakukan di dalam mendekatkan diri kita dengan Al-Quran. Ada orang yang mengatakan, Mas, saya baca Quran tiap hari. Saya merasa diri saya sudah lebih baik. Tapi kenapa ya susah bagi saya untuk bisa menjadi atau menjalankan Al-Quran dengan secara semuanya, secara kafah. Kadang-kadang saya masih memilih dan memilah. Logika masih menentang. Kadang-kadang masih mengatakan nanti aja dulu, entar aja dulu. Nah, nanti kita akan kaji lebih dalam lagi. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ustadz Nouman Ali Khan. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Syukur. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Ustaz.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ustaz, with the topic today, reconnect with Quran. Before you start your lecture, maybe I would like to ask you a question. Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
First, why is it very important to reconnect with Quran? Maybe considering that some of us in here, the audience, they already read Quran every day.
Yeah.
What's the true meaning of it? Is there any much more wide meaning of it, or there is a beyond meaning about it?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. This is a very difficult question for all Muslims, because all of us have love of Quran. Every Muslim that says La ilaha illallah, every Muslim that says Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam believes in the Quran, respects the Quran, loves the Quran, even recites the Quran. Many of you, mashallah, are hufaz of the Quran, or you listen to the recitation of the Quran every day. Some of you even study the Quran, meaning study the tafsir of the Quran, the meanings of the Quran. Some of you have copies of translation in your homes and you go through that every day. And all of this we do so to try to stay connected with the Quran. But what I'm hoping to do in today's lecture is to look at it from a different point of view. Is to maybe revisit what does it mean to connect to Allah's word. And I don't know if you want me to start now, get up there and start now.
Please, you can start
okay.
now, please.
So, in order to, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm very honored that I'm here in Jakarta for the first time. And just being in the land of Muslims makes me very happy. And Allah has blessed this country with La ilaha illallah. And as I come here, it's a very short trip. I'll be leaving soon, but I will be making a lot of dua for you, and that Allah Azza wa Jal makes this country an example for the entire ummah and an example for the entire world of what the beauty of Islam truly is. What I want to share with you today about connecting with the Quran begins with what you will think it's a different topic. But by the end, inshallah ta'ala, I hope that you will see that everything is connected. And I want to start with Ibrahim alayhi salam. We're going to start today with Ibrahim alayhi salam. I know that I have 2 sessions today. This session is about 40 minutes, then we have a break for salah, and then we come back again. And the second session is what I'm going to try to do to complete what I start in this session. So the first session is going to be half the story, and then the next of it will be the complete story, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Ibrahim alayhi salam, as you all know, lived in a society where he was the only one who had guidance. Nobody else had guidance. His father did not believe. Some say that was his uncle. He did not believe. Actually, he was the one who built the idols. Everybody around him worshipped idols. You want me to hold this? Yes? Okay, I'll hold this. Everybody around him worshipped idols. So he was the only one who accepted the faith in Allah. And when he did that and he stood by that faith, he got into a lot of trouble with his own family. And he had to even declare, Inna bura'a'u minkum, the few people who believed in him. Quran tells us, he said, I have nothing to do with any of you. Basically, in today's language, you let go of your citizenship. I'm no longer a citizen of this place. I'm leaving. When he does this, as he is leaving, he speaks to Allah. He gives a speech to Allah. And Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran is very different from the other prophets, because you find more dua from him than any other prophet. You find a lot of dua coming from Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is important because Islam has many names. And one of the names of Islam is Millat Ibrahim, the religion of Ibrahim, the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And that religion, at the heart of it, is making a lot of dua. Anyway, so he makes this dua, he makes a statement to Allah. He says, الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ, the one who made me, and then he guides me. He's the one who guides me. 2 parts. He made me, and he guides me. Allah created all of us. But for a lot of people, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ, did you think we just made you without any purpose and you can do whatever you want? And you're not going to come back to us? Ibrahim alayhi salam understood, Allah didn't just make me. He didn't just make my hands, my eyes, my feet, my body. He didn't just give me the ability to speak. He also gave me guidance. He told me how to live. He's given me instructions. Imagine he's the only one who says this. Nobody else around him believes this. So he says, not only did Allah make me, but he also continues to guide me. فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ. Then he says, وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينِ. He's the one who gives me food to eat, and he gives me drink for drink. Allah, subhanallah, he first mentioned guidance, then he mentioned food, and he mentioned drink. Allah gives all of us food and drink. He understands after being created, your number one need is guidance. And that need is more important than food, and is more important than drink. And you know, food and drink, you don't need it all the time. You need food. If you eat food, you're okay for a few hours. Then you need it again. Then you're okay for a little bit. Some of you have a problem, you need it every 5 minutes. But for the rest of you, you take a break before you eat again. And then same thing with drink. You know, the more difficult the weather, the more you have to drink. The more heated it is, the more you have to drink. He actually puts guidance before all of them, almost to say you need regular guidance more regularly than you need food, and more regularly than you need to drink. And Allah gives me that most essential need first, and then He fulfills my need for eating and my need for eating and my need for drinking. I want you to think about this also. We eat every day. We just ate today. And sometimes we say, you look at an apple in front of you, an orange in front of you, a glass of water, you know, something you eat, and you just say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you eat. But we ever stop and think, this banana or this apple, where did it come from? This was a seed. This was a seed. It was nothing. And from that nothing, Allah sent water from the sky. And He allowed that seed to start turning into a plant, which eventually turned into a tree. It took many years. And after all of those years, it gave a fruit. And that fruit was picked by a farmer and put in a basket. And then it was sold in the market. And then from that market, it went to the store where you got it. And you picked it up. And it came all the way to your house. And now you get to eat it. That delivery from where it started to where it is in front of you. فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانِ إِلَىٰ طَعَامِهِ. Human beings should look at their food. When you have a plate of food in front of you with tomato and rice and garlic and all these ingredients, each of those ingredients came from a different place in the world. And it came all the way to make it to your plate. All the way to reach just so you can eat. We don't think about this all the time. We just think, oh, only banana? No orange? What kind of iftar is this? الَّذِي يُطْعِمُنِي فَهُوَ يَسْقِينِي. He's thinking constantly, Allah is the one feeding me. Allah is the one giving me drink. Without Him giving me food and drink, I would have starved. This is a sense of gratitude Ibrahim alayhi salam puts in himself. You know, you would think, I want you to understand what's happening. He is being kicked out of the house. He has no home. He is being expelled from his country. He has no village. He has no country. He has no people. He has no family. At that time, you would think, where am I going to eat? What am I going to drink? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? How am I going to live? He says, فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِي وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينِي. He's the one who will guide me where to go. I have His guidance, good enough. I'm fine. And He's the one who will give me food. He has no home. Where's He going to get food? He has no drink. Where's He going to get drink? This is the time where you start worrying about things. This is the time where you think, how am I going to survive? And this is the time that He shows, this is the time that He turns to Allah and says, I'm okay because I have Allah. This is His speech. It's not just these words. You just read these words in a translation, you forget what was happening to Him when He said these words. This is very powerful. When you and I are having a problem, you lose your job, you get sick, sometimes in the family, the person who makes all the money in the family dies. How are we going to pay the rent? Where's the money going to come from? These are the thoughts in our head. It is when those thoughts are happening, when you and I can say, الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِي وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينِي. That's the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's when you know you're following the deen of Ibrahim alayhi salam. It is in those moments that you can turn to the reminder and the legacy left by him. فَاتَّبِعُوا مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا. But I go on. He made me, He guided me, or He guides me, He gives me food, He gives me drink, and then He says, وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُمِيتُنِي ثُمَّ يُحْيِينِي. He's going to give me death, and He'll bring me back to life again. This is very important. Maybe you don't find enough food and you die. That's possible. But that death also was a command of who? It was also a command of Allah. If I live, it's because Allah wants me to.
If I die, it's because Allah wants me to. And even when I die, that's not the end. I'm not afraid of death because my life did not end. ثُمَّ يُحْيِينِي. He will bring me back to life. It's like you go to sleep and you wake up again. He's very clear that even when I die, I am not finished. That's only one stop. And the next stop is being brought again. And he's very clear about that. He reminds himself and everybody around him when he's leaving, الَّذِي يُمِيتُنِي ثُمَّ يُحْيِينِي. But when Allah brings us back to life again, then He does not just give you rizq. Like this time, if you were born and you were raised, and maybe you were raised an atheist, or a Muslim, or a mushrik, a Buddhist, a Hindu, whatever, we all get oxygen, we all get food, we all get drink, and we all have a chance for guidance. Every human being, Allah gives a chance for guidance. But the second time He wakes us up, the second life, no more guidance. You don't have a chance anymore. Not everybody gets rizq the second time. The second time, what is your most important need? In the first time, your most important need was guidance, you remember. The second time, He says, وَالَّذِي أَطْمَعُ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ لِي خَطِيئَتِي يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. And the one I hope, meaning Allah, I hope He will forgive my mistakes when the day of judgment begins. The most important thing on his mind is, Ya Allah, forgive my mistakes. Now think about this for a second. I told you, when did he say this? When he was leaving. When he was leaving. When he was leaving, he got kicked out of his house. The people hate him. People did wrong to him. People have done wrong to him. You should be thinking, when judgment day comes, Allah will give me justice against you. You see what you did to me? Allah will take care of you on judgment day. Our focus is always on who did wrong to us. And we're hoping on judgment day we get our justice. Ibrahim alayhi salam, they did wrong to him. And he's leaving. And his focus is still who? Himself. I hope Allah forgives my mistakes. I hope Allah forgives me. Because he understands something. On judgment day, you are not interested in judging anybody else. You don't worry about anybody else. Even the victims of Fir'aun are not going to worry about Fir'aun. They're only going to worry about themselves. All of the prophets of Allah, alayhimussalatu wassalam, so much injustice was done to all of the prophets. No one of them says, Ya Allah, these are the Quraysh, punish them. Ya Allah, these are the kuffar of Nuh alayhi salam, punish them. They don't have to say anything. All of them are saying, nafsi, 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 myself, myself, myself. Are thinking about judgment day. Even when you and I today, we think about judgment day, we don't think about ourselves. We think about this zalim will get justice, this criminal will get justice, I hope you get justice, I hope my cousin gets justice, I hope my mother-in-law gets justice. We don't think about our own mistakes. We're too focused on everybody else. Ibrahim alayhi salam understands something. That on that day, nothing will matter except my mistakes. I hope Allah forgives them. And what mistakes did Ibrahim alayhi salam make? You can't even think of any mistakes that he made. Why is he worried? يَغْفِرَ لِي خَطِيئَتِي. Because human beings, we don't even know when we make a mistake. And we don't remember when we make a mistake. Even when you make a mistake, somebody tells you, hey, you made a mistake. You're like, I don't remember. Me? Mistake? You must be mistaken. Right? This is the first part of his speech. Now listen. Now he's leaving. He turns to Allah. Rabbi habli hukman. My Rabb, give me strong decision-making power. Give me the ability to make the right decision when it's very hard. Hukm. Hukm means give me decision-making power. He already asked for guidance. He already said Allah guides him, yes? Guidance is the part one. Just because you have guidance, that means you know what to do. But if you know what to do, but you don't have the willpower, and you don't have the strength, I know this is the right thing, but I can't do it. I'm not strong enough to do it. When he says, Rabbi habli hukman, he's asking Allah the strength to make the right decisions. When Allah Azza wa Jal reveals to him, slaughter your own son, you have to have a lot of strength to put a knife there. When he's being thrown into a fire, you have to have a lot of strength to calm down and just jump into a fire. When he's being told, leave your family in the middle of a desert, you have to have a lot of strength. You can't, yes, I know Allah said it, but seriously? The baby's crying, there's no water. You want me just right there? Just leave? Yeah, leave. That requires hukum. This is something you and I need, yes or no? We know sometimes what Allah wants us to do. We know you need to tell the truth. You know you need to quit this job. This is haram. You know you need to stop texting her. You know, but I can't do it. I just can't stop. Rabbi habli hukman. Master, give me firm, strong decision-making power. And then he says, وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ, and join me with good people. Easy translation, join me with good people. He's leaving, he's all alone. And now he needs new company. Even Ibrahim alayhi salam knows human beings need other human beings for support. You cannot hold on to your iman all alone. You need other people for support. And he makes dua to Allah, Ya Allah, give me company of good people. You have to ask yourself, you and I are the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The month of Ramadan is coming. Who is our company? Who are your friends? What kind of things do your friends talk about? Where do they want you to go? What do they want you to do? What do they like? What do they hate? Do they make you a better person? Do they bring you closer to Allah? Are they the ones that when you see them, you remember guidance? Or when you see them, you forget guidance? And when you even bring up guidance, they get annoyed with you. Can we talk about something else? Alhiqni bis-salihin. Give me the company of good people. This is a desperate dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. This means if Ibrahim needs it, we definitely need it. If he needs it, then we are much more in need of alhiqni bis-salihin. So he says, give me strong decision-making. By the way, you need strong decision-making power to leave bad friends. Yes or no? When you have bad friends, it's hard to leave. You're going to miss them. You need that strength. And then you will get more strength when you have good people supporting you. May Allah Azza wa Jal give all of us the company of as-salihin and make us among them ourselves. Then he says his dua keeps going. He says a strange dua. He says, وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. It's so beautiful. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever read about Ibrahim alayhi salam is this ayah. It's difficult to translate. He says, provide for me, give me someone who will speak the truth about me in the last generations. He's alone. He's alone in the desert. Nobody knows him. He's not a king. He's not a historian. He's not going to write a book. This is the history of Ibrahim, son of Azar. He's not going to do that. There is no recording devices. There is nobody interested in what happened to him. When people write history, they write the history of kings and of generals, of rulers, or of scholars, or of people that built big buildings and monuments. That's history. And he says to Allah, Ya Allah, you put me through a lot of tests. Basically, he's saying, you put me through a lot of tests. And people should learn about those tests because it will make their iman strong. But when I die alone and nobody will remember, nobody will know my name, nobody will remember the test you gave me, then they will not be able to get this guidance. He asks Allah, Ya Allah, make me an example that someone in the later time will tell the truth about me. Lisana sidqin fil akhirin. Subhanallah. Thousands of years later, you get the Rasul of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Allah gives him the Quran. And in the Quran, we learn the truth about Ibrahim alayhi salam. And now forever we know that truth. We will never forget. No historian had it. Even the Bible didn't have it. Nobody else had it. Allah gave it to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam after those thousands of years. Can you imagine when Ibrahim alayhi salam made that dua? وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْعَالَمِينَ. When he made that dua, nobody's around. He's alone by himself in the desert. Nobody heard it. And you say, oh, this thing I said, it died. And he died. And 100 years went by, 200 years went by, 400 years went by, 4,000 years went by. And Allah still has the recording of that dua. And He repeated that dua and made it part of the Quran. It's in the Quran from those words from those thousands of years ago. Can you imagine? This is actually the Quran itself. And when the Quran tells the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, it is actually answering the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ وَاجْعَلْ لِي مِنْ وَرَثَةِ جَنَّةِ النَّعِيمِ. Ya Allah, make me from people who inherit Jannah. You know what inheritance is? Inheritance happens when somebody what? Somebody dies. A son will inherit from who? The father. But Ibrahim just left his father. He doesn't want his father's inheritance. That inheritance is shirk. He doesn't want it. So he says to Allah, Ya Allah, give me the inheritance of Jannah. I don't want the inheritance of my family. I want the inheritance of Jannah. And so he says, وَاجْعَلْ لِي مِنْ وَرَثَةِ جَنَّةِ النَّعِيمِ وَاغْفِرْ لِي أَبِي. And now it makes sense. Forgive my father. I don't want his inheritance because his inheritance is a crime against you. Forgive my father. إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الضَّالِّينَ. He had been from those that were lost. Now, and this is the last part. I know you were supposed to learn about connecting to Quran. It's all connected. Believe me. Just trust me. Just listen. وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ. My Rabb, do not humiliate me the day on which they will all be raised. Don't humiliate me on the day on which all of them will be raised. In other words, he's saying that in my family there are people who do shirk. First of all, Ya Allah, forgive me, forgive them. And he asks Allah that maybe they get guidance. But if he dies and he doesn't get guidance, then on Judgment Day, you don't want to stand if in this life when your son commits murder or your husband is in jail. It's embarrassing, yes? Oh, you're that guy's wife? Oh, he's in jail, right? You don't come out of the house, you hide your face. If your son is known as a criminal, it's humiliating for you. On Judgment Day, in front of all humanity, that's your father? The one who built idols, that's your father? Isn't that embarrassing? He says, Ya Allah, don't humiliate me on that day. وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. And he says, the day on which money and children will be no good. Listen to this carefully. He says, the day on which money and children will be no good. His father had money. He was making money. No good. Who was his child? Ibrahim. Ibrahim is pretty good. Not good enough. You have to be good yourself. Your children will not get you into Jannah. You have to have your own clean heart. You know what happens nowadays? I am going to make my son Hafiz of Quran, and then I will do whatever I want because I already have my ticket to Jannah. My son will take care of it. Azar's son is Ibrahim alayhi salam, and that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And also he understands that even he one day will have children. He was a young man at this time, but later on he's going to have children. And he says right now, there's a day coming, there will be no point. Money will be no good, children will be no good. Quran will later on describe it. يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ. The day will come and people will run away from their brother, their mother, their father, their children, their siblings. They'll run away from everybody. Nobody benefits you. You don't care about anybody else. يَوْمَ تَذْهَلُ كُلُّ مُرْضِعَةٍ عَمَّا أَرْضَعَتْ. Every mother who feeds a baby will throw her baby away. She doesn't care on Judgment Day. It's gone. It's beyond imagination. He understands that and he says, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. But then he says something, which is why I said all of this. He says, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Except whoever comes in front of Allah with a healthy or a safe heart. There's only one thing that has any value on Judgment Day, and that is what Quran calls qalbun salim, a safe, sound, healthy heart. That's it. That's all that counts. Nothing else means anything. The only thing of value will be qalb salim. This is all Ibrahim alayhi salam is worried about. Which is why later on, if جَاءَ رَبَّهُ بِقَلْبٍ salim, Allah describes him, he came to Allah with a good heart. Himself, he came to Allah with a good heart. We have to connect to Allah in Ramadan. You know what that means? We have to get a good heart. If you get a good heart, everything else is okay. If you don't get a good heart, nothing else means anything. None of it matters. None of it has any value. Now listen carefully. This is towards my conclusion of this session, so we can have a discussion about connecting with the Quran properly in the next session. Ibrahim alayhi salam many years later had a child. And then another child. But his first child, Ismail alayhi salam, Allah told him to build the Kaaba. When they were building the Kaaba, Ibrahim alayhi salam made a dua. And the dua was, رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. Master, he made dua for his children. He said, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ. From our children, give us Muslim children, an ummah that is Muslim. Now, didn't Ibrahim alayhi salam himself say, children are no benefit? He just said it. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. He said children will be of no benefit. Now he's making dua for children. You see the difference? Why is he making this dua for children? He needs the kind of children that are of benefit. What are the kind of children that have benefit? If you have a good heart and they also have a good heart, then they are of benefit to you. So he wants an ummah that is Muslim. But how are they going to have a good heart? How in the world will they have a good heart? How do you make sure of that? So he tells Allah, he asks Allah, رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. My Rabb, he was standing with Ismail alayhi salam thousands of years ago. He said, give them a messenger. Raise a messenger from among them. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ. He will recite your ayat. He will teach them the book. He will teach them the wisdom. And he will purify them. Now, let me give you a history lesson before I conclude. You have to understand this part so we can understand the next part. Ibrahim alayhi salam, two of his famous sons are Ismail and who? Ismail and who? Ishaq. Ishaq, his son is Yaqub. Yaqub, his sons include Yusuf. And his other sons are the 12 sons of Israel. And from the 12 sons of Israel, you get many prophets. كُلَّمَا هَلَكَ نَبِيٌّ خَلَفَ نَبِيٌّ. Every time a prophet died, another one would come. Continuously prophets. قَفَّيْنَا عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ بِرُسُلِنَا. Allah says, we continued them, reinforced them. One prophet, then another prophet, then another prophet, then another prophet. You understand? In this dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, how many prophets did he ask for? رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. One Rasul. Some people say this dua should be for Ishaq. Ibrahim did not, the chosen child is Ishaq. The final prophet will come from Ishaq. If it's coming from Ishaq alayhi salam, why would he make dua for one prophet? From Ismail alayhi salam, thousands of years, no prophet. At the same time, in those thousands of years, prophet after prophet after prophet on the other side, all the way until Isa alayhi salam. On this side, only one prophet. Which prophet? Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now understand this. Thousands of years ago, that man made a dua. Send them someone who will recite your ayat. But he already told us the only thing that is valuable is what? A good what? A good heart. What is the purpose of the ayat? To give you a good heart. Qalbun salim. That's why the ayat are there. Allah describes the Quran, He says, "Inna fi dhalika la dhikra liman kana lahu qalb." This is a reminder for people who actually still have a heart. This is meant for our hearts. Now, thousands of years ago He made that dua, and thousands of years later, Allah sent Jibreel alayhi salam to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that was the answer to the dua of Ibrahim. That was the answer to the dua of Ibrahim. The month of Ramadan, 30 days, we are celebrating that Allah accepted the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's actually what we're celebrating. You cannot understand what it means to connect with the Quran if you don't understand what it means to connect with your father Ibrahim. Those two things are connect. You understand the connection between those two things? We would not have Quran if who did not make dua? Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam gave us the purpose of the Quran. The purpose of the Quran was that our heart would be safe. إِلَّا مَنَ اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Now, in our next session, I know I only have a few minutes left, but in our next session I'll go into this in more detail, but I'll give you one thing. We recite the Quran, yes or no? We recite the Quran, we read the translation of the Quran, we memorize the Quran, we listen to the recitation of the Quran. We have we have art of the Quran. There's art of the Quran up there. It's beautiful. But all of that, it can be on your tongue, it could be in your mind, it could be in your ear. But the Quran is meant, number one, for what? For the heart. Is it possible that somebody knows a lot about the Quran up here, but there's no connection here? That's possible. This is easy. You can study tafsir, you can get a lot of knowledge of Quran. You can study tajweed, you can recite Quran perfectly. You can memorize the Quran. Quran on your tongue, Quran in your brain, Quran in your ear, easy, easy, easy. Quran in your heart, very difficult. That's very difficult. What it means to connect to the Quran is to allow your heart to connect to the Quran. This is not an easy thing. It's not cheap. You can't just get it without a price. A price has to be paid. Ibrahim alayhi salam went through so much trouble to finally make this dua. You know, he made this dua when he was building the Kaaba. I told you that. When he was building the Kaaba, all of his tests were finished. From a young man who had to challenge his own father, to when he had to leave his family, to the knife on the child's neck, all of those tests, one after the other after the other. After all of those tests, finally you graduate. When you graduate, you get a special gift. What's the gift? Ask, what do you want? After all of those tests. And the ask, the dua, the request from Allah, this is what I want, is this dua. The dua that one day you and I will have the Quran. You and I will have the Quran. This dua was not cheap. You don't just sit there and make this dua. You have to go through a lot of tests to qualify to ask for Quran. If that's the test, then you and I will not have an easy connection with the Quran without any effort. فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Is there anybody who will put an effort to remember the Quran the way it deserves to be remembered? This is the key that we need to now explore. This is what we have to figure out. What are we going to do in the month of Ramadan, and even before then, that we will be connected with the Quran the way we're supposed to be? Listen to me very carefully. Some of you don't know how to recite Quran. That's okay. Some of you haven't memorized, you only know Fatiha and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas, and that's every salah. That's okay. It's okay. Some of you took Shahada maybe 1 month ago, you know no Arabic, nothing. That's okay. Some of you are hufaz of the Quran, very nice. Some of you are ulama. Some of you are much more knowledgeable than I am. But let me tell you something. All of us have the same problem. All of us. The ones who know a lot and the ones who know nothing have the same problem. There's a distance between our heart and the Quran. There's a distance for all of us. even the ulama among us. I'm included, you're included, everybody's included. We need to put an effort to connect ourselves to the Quran. It doesn't matter if you read it every day. It doesn't matter if you've studied all of it. It doesn't matter if you read the whole translation. That doesn't mean you're connected to it. It doesn't mean you're connected to it. So as I leave you with this first session, I'll just give you one example. Sometimes somebody tells you something you already know, but it hits you really hard. Sometimes, for example, you had an argument with your mother. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. You had an argument with your mother. And you left the house angry. And your friend sat down next to you. You told him what happened. And your friend grabs your shoulder and he goes, "That's your mother. That's your mother." That's what he says. Now, is that new information? You don't say, "Oh, really? That's what..." You already know that's your mother. But at that time, when he said, "That's your mom, man," what happens to you? Oh, you're right. I'm going to go say sorry. You start crying. You're sitting there crying. Did you learn something new? No. But sometimes when you hear some words, they don't go here. Where do they go? They go here. And you need those words. Even though you already know them, you need them again. And you need them again. That is Quran. That's Quran. Words that come, they don't hit you here. They hit you here. They hit you here. They make you cry. You needed to hear that. That is an exercise that we are going to, I'll give you some things you can do to connect your heart to the Quran, and I'll try to do them myself to connect my heart to the Quran. So that'll be my conclusion for the first session. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you for the lecture, for the first session. And tadi kita sama-sama sudah dengar bahwa yang penting adalah bagaimana kita bisa menghubungkan diri kita dengan Al-Quran, dengan hati kita. Tadi sudah disampaikan bahwa pentingnya kita untuk bisa memaknai ketakwaan kepada Allah seperti yang diajarkan oleh Nabi Ibrahim. Firm. Jadi pada saat kita mendengarkan perintah Allah di dalam Al-Quran, ya kita taat, tidak memilih dan tidak memilah. Nanti di sesi kedua kita akan tanyakan kepada beliau bagaimana caranya. Kalau tadi sudah dijelaskan bahwa sebenarnya kita ini sering baca Quran, we recite Quran every day, we hear Quran every day, we hear, we see, but it's not connected with us. Kita nggak terhubung dengan Al-Quran. Bagaimana caranya? Nanti kita akan lanjutkan di sesi kedua dengan Ustadz Nouman Ali Khan, melanjutkan bagaimana kita bisa connect atau reconnect with Al-Quran. What should we do to reconnect with Quran? Tentunya dengan Ustadz Nouman Ali Khan.